Here's a blast from the past. Former White House Press Secretary KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, trashing her former party. It happens in her memoir, explaining she couldn't handle being a Democrat anymore because of how party leaders treated her former boss. That, of course, being President Biden. Quote, "I was enraged and heartbroken that this man had given more than 50 years of his life to serving the American people. And in the end, he'd been treated poorly by members of his own party. The Democratic Party has defined my life, my career. Everything I'd done to make people's lives better had been connected to it. You know what? I'm going to become an independent. I don't think I can stomach being in the Democratic Party anymore."
Joining us now is Fox News contributor and senior writer for the Washington Examiner, Joe Concha. Joe, what do you think about this?
I think, Carly, this argument by Karine Jean-Pierre is insulting to anyone sane and sober. She is only saying this now because she has to sell a book by making herself the victim, much in the same way Kamala Harris is doing the same on her book tour. She's an independent. Is she going to honestly vote for anybody who is right of center, who is an independent or a Republican? No, never, of course, because she was the face of this administration and repeatedly told the country that Joe Biden was as sharp as a tack. And she said to the country from that podium at the James S. Brady briefing room that it was hard to keep up with him. Please, I've seen Jell-O move faster than Joe Biden. He wasn't treated poorly. He treated the country poorly by running for president in the first place when he clearly was losing it, going all the way back to the 2020 campaign. So great. Congratulations on your book tour, Karine Jean-Pierre, but no one's buying this argument that somehow you're insulted by the way Joe Biden was treated when you were leading the lie that his brain was fully functioning when he was the sitting president of the United States. That's how I feel.
But Joe, will people buy the book? Because I would think that if she came out in her promos, which is happening now, and said, look, I had some serious questions. You want to find out more? Buy my book. She's basically saying, no, he was perfect. And we know that's not the case. So why would anybody buy this book now? I'm confused.
We're all confused, Todd, in this case. I guess it's the hook, right? That she was misled by XYZ, and therefore now she has to put out that Joe Biden was fine and he was treated poorly. There is no Joe Biden base. So I guess she's trying to appeal to that base. But Joe Biden only got elected in the first place because people were voting against Donald Trump, not because they were voting for Joe Biden. So I don't get where she's coming from in here, but I guess everybody has to make money, and this is a way that she thinks she's going to do it.
All right. There's also this. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is now doubling down, saying that AG candidate Jay Jones should not drop out of the race despite those really awful text messages that he sent saying that he wishes a Republican would die. Listen to what he has to say about this, the latest here.
Those texts, private text with a colleague, cannot be defended. They cannot be defended. But Jay Jones has apologized earnestly. The Republicans knew about these texts for years. They waited until the ballot was printed, and they waited until hundreds of thousands of people had already voted beginning on September 19th. The voters will make up their mind about these texts.
So Jay Jones still has Tim Kaine's support. How does that impact the scandal in the race?
Well, it just shows that not just Tim Kaine, but you go through everybody who Mark Warner, who's another senator from Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, who's running for governor, and every Democrat in the country will not just say Jay Jones needs to drop out of this race. And this is your reminder that Tim Kaine was the second worst VP pick in history, slightly behind Goofy Tim Walz. I mean, how can anyone say that Jay Jones should be the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia after he publicly wished death on not only his political opponent, but his wife, and said that her two little kids, who are not even in kindergarten, should die in her arms? I mean, how do you possibly say that, well, he apologized, so that makes it okay? This person wants to be the top cop of one of the biggest states in the country. He should be nowhere near public office. And Tim Kaine just shows that he has no moral compass, which is why, again, he did not help Hillary Clinton when she ran for president. And it remains obvious to this day that Tim Kaine maybe shouldn't be in office as well. When you can't just condemn something as easy as this, I'm sorry. It's just unbelievable that Democrats are actually standing by this guy after everything that he said, including, by the way, guys, that more cops need to die in order for police to be reformed. I mean, that's some sick stuff, and I don't know how any police union can support it.
It goes beyond this guy. So many Democrats silent on this, and that's concerning. Got to leave it there. Joe Concha.
Thanks, Joe.
Have a great day with that.
Yes.
Fox and Friends right now.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.